A bear finds a baby in a car accident and takes it to the forest. What the bear does next left everyone shocked. The howl of the wind in the mountains of Wyoming was deafening on that winter night. The storm battered the region with unprecedented fury, transforming the landscape into a ghostly scene. Centuries-old pine trees bent before the force of nature, while lightning cut through the sky in a terrifying spectacle. Amidst the chaos of the elements, a family traversed the winding road that snaked between the mountains. John Taylor gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to maintain control of the vehicle on the treacherous curves. Beside him, his wife Sarah alternated her gaze between the road ahead and little Noah, who slept peacefully in the back seat, oblivious to the storm surrounding them. "John, maybe we should stop," Sarah suggested, her voice betraying the concern she felt. "This storm is getting worse by the minute." "Just a few more miles, honey," John replied, trying to sound confident. "We'll soon reach a safer area to stop." Little Noah, only 2 years old, hugged his favorite teddy bear, dreaming of the adventures he would have in the new home they were moving to. The Taylor family had decided to restart their lives in the mountains of Wyoming, seeking a closer connection with nature and a more tranquil lifestyle. A particularly strong lightning illuminated the sky, followed instantly by a deafening thunder. The noise startled Noah, who woke up with a jolt. Sarah turned to comfort her son, but before she could reach him, John shouted. A huge tree had fallen on the road, completely blocking the passage. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. John tried to swerve, but the wet road made any sudden maneuver impossible. The car skidded, spinning out of control. Sarah screamed her son's name while John struggled to regain control of the vehicle. Amidst the chaos, something extraordinary happened. The car's back door opened, and little Noah, still clutching his teddy bear, was thrown out of the vehicle. By some inexplicable miracle, he fell onto a pile of soft snow which cushioned his fall. The impact, however, was enough to leave him disoriented. Meanwhile, in the depths of the forest surrounding the road, an imposing presence moved silently among the trees. A grizzly bear, magnificent in her strength and maternal instinct, had sensed the commotion. Normally she would avoid any contact with humans, but something that night made her act differently. Noah's frightened cry echoed through the forest, mingling with the sound of the storm. The bear, guided by an instinct that defied nature itself, cautiously approached the spot where the boy had fallen. Her dark eyes, deep as the night itself, fixed on the small figure shivering in the snow. Noah, still hugging his teddy bear, looked at the imposing creature approaching. Where others would see only danger, the little boy saw something different. Perhaps it was his childlike innocence, or perhaps it was something deeper, more mystical, but there was no fear in his eyes when he met the bear's gaze. The storm continued its wild symphony, but at that moment an inexplicable bond began to form. The bear, moved by a maternal instinct that transcended species barriers, gently approached the boy. With surprising gentleness for an animal of her size, she sniffed little Noah, who remained strangely calm. The scene unfolding was a testament to the unpredictability of nature. A grizzly bear, known for its ferocity and power, now became the unlikely guardian of a human child. It was as if fate had woven an extraordinary plot, uniting two souls in ways that human reason could never comprehend. The first light of morning revealed a scene transformed by the previous night's storm. Fresh snow covered the landscape like an immaculate white blanket, while the first rays of sun danced among the pine branches. In the heart of the forest, in a cave sheltered from the cutting wind, little Noah slept peacefully, nestled against the warm fur of the grizzly bear. The gigantic creature had taken the boy to her refuge during the night, protecting him from the elements and the intense cold. Her behavior defied all known laws of nature. Instead of seeing the small human as a threat or prey, the bear treated him with almost maternal care. When Noah woke up, his sleepy eyes opened to a completely new world. The cave was spacious and surprisingly cozy, with the floor covered in dry leaves that the bear had gathered. The boy showed no sign of fear. On the contrary, he seemed fascinated by his furry protector. "Bear," Noah murmured in his childish language, still clutching his teddy bear, now wet and dirty from the night's adventure. The bear responded with a soft grunt, as if understanding the little nickname she had just received. Meanwhile, near the accident site, a search team was already mobilizing. Tom Walker, an experienced local tracker, known for his almost supernatural ability to read nature's signs, led the efforts. His attentive eyes examined every detail of the scene, looking for clues that could lead to the whereabouts of the missing boy. "The footprints in the snow," muttered Tom, crouching to examine almost imperceptible marks on the ground. "There's something different here." His years of experience made him notice an unusual pattern. Alongside the small marks of Noah's feet, there were huge bear tracks. The discovery made his heart race. Under normal circumstances, finding bear tracks near a missing child would be the worst-case scenario. However, something in the pattern of the marks intrigued him. The footprints showed no signs of pursuit or attack. On the contrary, they seemed to indicate a protective movement. In the cave, the bear demonstrated even more surprising behavior. After checking that Noah was safe, she briefly went out, returning with some wild berries she had found preserved under the snow. With impressive delicacy, she offered the food to the boy, who accepted without hesitation. Noah, in his childish innocence, saw nothing strange about being fed by a giant bear. For him, it was as if he were living a real version of his favorite storybooks. He even shared some playful moments with his protector, laughing when she gently sniffed his neck. The bear, in turn, exhibited behavior that defied all expectations. She kept constant vigilance over the boy, but not in a possessive or aggressive way. It was as if she had assumed the role of temporary guardian, guided by an instinct that went beyond human understanding. Tom Walker and his team followed the clues through the forest, facing the challenges of the rugged terrain and deep snow. The tracker kept his senses on high alert, aware that every minute was precious. However, the more he observed the signs left by the bear and the child, the more intrigued he became with the unique nature of this situation. "I've never seen anything like this in all my years in the mountains," Tom commented to his assistant Mike. "It's as if the bear is protecting the boy." News of Noah's disappearance was already beginning to spread through the nearby small town. Additional rescue teams were mobilized, and helicopters flew over the area in search of any sign of the child. No one could imagine that, while everyone feared the worst, little Noah was safer than ever, under the care of his unlikely guardian. The second day of searches dawned with a clearer sky, but the intense cold remained. Tom Walker and his team had resumed work as soon as the first rays of sun touched the mountains. The experienced tracker felt he was close to a significant discovery, guided by his intuition sharpened by decades of experience in the region. "The tracks are fresher around here," observed Tom, pointing to recent marks in the snow. The trail led them deeper into the forest, towards an area known to harbor grizzly bears. Under normal circumstances, any sensible person would avoid this region, but Tom sensed that there was something different about this situation. Meanwhile, in the cave, Noah and his protector had developed a surprisingly harmonious routine. The bear had gone out again to fetch food, returning with more berries and some edible roots. The boy, who initially should have been frightened and hungry, seemed perfectly adapted to his new situation, as if he had found a deep and inexplicable connection with the animal. "Bear back," Noah would say in his childish language every time the bear returned to the cave. The animal responded with soft sounds, almost as if understanding the boy's words. The communication between them transcended species barriers, establishing itself at a deeper, more instinctive level. Tom and his team continued to advance cautiously through the forest. The tracker had noticed something peculiar about the behavior of other animals in the region. Instead of the usual silence that preceded an encounter with a dangerous predator, birds sang normally, and small mammals continued their routine activities. "Something different is happening here," Tom muttered to himself as he watched a squirrel calmly cross his path. Years of experience told him that animals usually showed great agitation in the presence of a threatening bear, but that wasn't what was happening. As the team approached the cave area, Tom signaled for everyone to stop. A soft and unexpected sound reached his ears. It was a child's laughter, mixed with what seemed to be a gentle bear grunt. The scene that unfolded before them was something that none of those present would ever forget. At the entrance of one of the caves, little Noah played calmly with a branch, while the huge grizzly bear rested near him, alert but relaxed. The connection between them was palpable, defying all logic and knowledge about animal behavior. Tom, who had witnessed countless encounters between humans and wild animals, had never seen anything like it. "My God," whispered Mike, Tom's assistant, clearly impressed by the scene. "How is this possible?" Tom signaled for everyone to remain absolutely still. Any sudden movement could break that extraordinary moment, and possibly put the boy in danger. He knew he needed to act with extreme caution, not to disturb the delicate balance that had been established between the child and the animal. The bear, sensing the presence of humans, slowly rose. However, her behavior continued to surprise. Instead of the expected defensive posture, she remained calm, as if understanding that these people were there to help her little protégé. Noah, noticing the change in his guardian's posture, looked in the direction of the group. His eyes lit up at seeing other people, but he showed no fear or anxiety. It was as if the days spent with the bear had taught him a different way of seeing the world, a deeper understanding of the connection between all creatures. Tom decided it was time to act. With slow and deliberate movements, he began to approach, maintaining eye contact with both the bear and the boy. His experience told him that this moment could define not only Noah's immediate fate, but also our understanding of the relationship between humans and wild animals. Tom's approach towards Noah and his protector was one of the tensest moments of his long career as a tracker. Each step was calculated, each movement smooth and deliberate. The bear watched attentively but maintained a surprising calm, as if understanding the man's peaceful intentions. "It's all right, little buddy," Tom spoke softly, addressing both the boy and the animal. Noah, still sitting close to the bear, smiled at the tracker, completely oblivious to the tension of the moment. For him, this extraordinary situation was perfectly natural. "Bear friend," Noah declared with childish simplicity, eliciting expressions of astonishment among the rescue team members. The naturalness with which the boy referred to the immense predator as a friend was simultaneously touching and disconcerting. Tom continued approaching, maintaining a calm and constant dialogue. "You're right, Noah, she really is your friend. She took very good care of you." The tracker realized he was witnessing something unique, something that defied everything he thought he knew about animal behavior. The bear, surprisingly, began to slowly move away, creating space for Tom to approach Noah. It was as if she understood that her protection mission was coming to an end, that it was time to return the boy to his own kind. However, her attentive eyes never stopped observing the scene. When Tom finally reached Noah, the boy stretched out his arms to be carried, but immediately looked back towards his protector. "Bear come too?" he asked with genuine concern. The innocent question deeply touched all present, revealing the strength of the bond that had formed between the child and the animal. "The bear needs to stay in the forest, Noah," Tom explained gently, "but I'm sure she'll always be your special friend." As he spoke, the tracker couldn't help but notice how the bear seemed to understand the conversation, staying close but allowing the transition to happen naturally. News of the rescue soon spread, attracting the attention of curious onlookers and the media. The story of the boy who survived thanks to the care of a grizzly bear captured the public imagination. But for Tom Walker, the event represented something much deeper. In the days that followed, as Noah recovered at the local hospital, Tom couldn't get the scenes he had witnessed out of his head. The way the bear had protected and cared for the boy, the natural communication between them, the way the animal understood the moment to let him go, all of this suggested a complexity in animal behavior that science didn't yet fully understand. Sarah and John Taylor, Noah's parents, after recovering from their minor injuries at the hospital, couldn't hold back tears as they heard the details of their son's rescue. The story seemed surreal, but the evidence was undeniable. Their little boy had been saved and protected by one of North America's most feared predators. "It's a miracle," Sarah whispered, hugging Noah tightly. "A true miracle." John, for his part, couldn't find words to express his gratitude to fate and his son's unlikely guardian. Tom Walker, observing the reunited family, began to formulate an idea in his mind. The extraordinary experience he had just witnessed couldn't simply be filed away as a curiosity. There was something deeper to be explored, something that could fundamentally change our understanding of the relationship between humans and wild animals. Meanwhile, in the forest, the bear returned to her normal routine. But something had changed. Her experience with Noah had left an indelible mark, not only on her but on everyone who witnessed or heard about this extraordinary story. It was the beginning of something greater, something that no one could yet fully imagine. A week after Noah's extraordinary rescue, the small town of Pine Valley was buzzing with the presence of scientists, journalists, and curious onlookers from around the world. The story of the boy and the grizzly bear had captured global imagination, attracting animal behavior experts from renowned research institutions. Tom Walker, sitting in his mountain cabin, observed the unusual movement with a mixture of concern and hope. In his hands, he held an ambitious project, a proposal for the creation of a sanctuary dedicated to the study of communication between species. The place where Noah was found would be the epicenter of this unique space for research and conservation. "It's a revolutionary idea, Tom," commented Dr. Emily Richards, a renowned primatologist who had arrived from Cambridge University, especially to visit the site. "But you know we'll face considerable resistance." Tom nodded, aware of the challenges that would come. The first meeting with the City Council was scheduled for that afternoon, and he knew that not everyone shared his enthusiasm for the idea. Especially concerning was the position of Frank Thompson, an influential local farmer known for his inflexible stance on wildlife. At the hospital, Noah continued to surprise the medical team with his exceptional recovery. The boy constantly talked about his bear friend, drawing images of her on every piece of paper he could find. The child psychologists who were monitoring him were fascinated by his ability to describe in detail his interaction with the animal. "He developed a unique form of nonverbal communication with the bear," explained Dr. Margaret Chen, a child development specialist. "It's as if he discovered a universal language that transcends barriers between species." The afternoon arrived, and the town hall was packed for the presentation of the sanctuary project. Tom Walker, normally reserved, found himself at the center of attention. With the help of Emily Richards and other researchers, he presented his vision for the future of the region. "What we propose is not just a research center," Tom explained, his voice firm, echoing through the hall. "It's an opportunity to understand something extraordinary that happened in our town. A chance to learn from this unique connection between a boy and a wild animal." The presentation included preliminary studies of the bear's unusual behavior, photographic records of the footprints that told the story of the rescue, and emotional testimonies from professionals who witnessed the encounter in the cave. However, as soon as they opened for questions, tensions began to emerge. Frank Thompson was the first to speak up, his voice laden with skepticism and concern. "What about the safety of our families? You want to turn our town into a playground for bears? This is madness." Other residents expressed similar concerns, fearing that the sanctuary would attract predators close to inhabited areas. The discussion began to heat up, with voices rising and heated arguments being exchanged. It was at this moment that Sarah Taylor, still with some visible bandages, stood up to speak. The hall fell into silence as she began her emotional account of how a grizzly bear had saved and protected her son when everyone feared the worst. "That animal you all fear so much protected my son better than any human could have," Sarah declared, her voice choked with emotion. "If this doesn't teach us something about prejudices and hasty judgments, I don't know what else could." The impact of her words was immediate. Even the most skeptical seemed reflective. Tom realized that this was the crucial moment to present the most innovative aspect of his proposal, a research program that would not only study animal behavior, but also develop new techniques for peaceful coexistence between humans and wildlife. The debate about the sanctuary extended for hours with passionate arguments from both sides. Tom Walker, supported by the team of scientists, patiently responded to each question, presenting data and studies that supported the project's viability. The tension in the air was palpable, but something was changing in the atmosphere of the hall. Dr. Emily Richards presented successful examples of other sanctuaries around the world, although admitting that none of them had arisen from circumstances as extraordinary as those of Pine Valley. What we have here is a unique opportunity to study something that has never been documented before: genuine communication between a human and a grizzly bear. The discussion took an unexpected turn when Jennifer Wu, a young local biologist working on wildlife preservation in the region, stood up to speak. "Think about the economic potential," she argued. "A research center of this importance will bring investments, create jobs, and put Pine Valley on the map of world science." The economic argument seemed to touch a sensitive point. Even Frank Wilson, the most vocal farmer against the project, showed a glimmer of interest. The city had faced economic difficulties in recent years, and the prospect of a new financial boost was tempting. Sarah and John Martinez remained at the center of attention, their personal testimony carrying special weight in the discussion. John, who had remained silent until then, decided to share his own reflections. "Before this event, I also feared bears and other wild animals," he admitted. but now I understand that there is much more to learn about them than we imagined. Our family had a second chance thanks to an animal that everyone considered just a threat. Dr. Margaret Chen seized the moment to present her observations on Noah's behavior. The bond that formed between the boy and the bear was not just a fortunate accident, she explained. It represents an innate capacity for communication that perhaps we all possess, but that has been forgotten over time. As the discussion continued, Noah played quietly in a corner of the hall, once again drawing his bear friend. His serene and joyful behavior, even after an experience that could have been traumatic, was a silent but powerful testimony to the potential of the project. Mayor Robert Hayes, who had listened attentively to all the arguments, finally spoke. This is a decision that will affect not only our generation, but future ones as well. We need to think carefully and vote wisely. The vote was scheduled for the end of that same night. The tension was evident as council members and citizens present prepared to express their opinion. Tom Walker watched anxiously, aware that the next moments would define not only the future of the sanctuary, but possibly a new era in the relationship between humans and wildlife. The voting process began amidst respectful silence. Each vote was carefully recorded, each decision weighing the future of the community. The final count was approaching, and the fate of the sanctuary was about to be decided. At the back of the hall, Noah continued his drawing, oblivious to the historic importance of the moment, but representing in his innocence everything that was at stake that night. The silence that preceded the announcement of the voting result was deafening. Mayor Hayes, with slightly trembling hands, held the paper with the final vote count. All eyes in the hall were fixed on him, anxiously awaiting the decision that would change the future of Pine Valley. With 65% of the votes in favor, announced the mayor, his voice echoing through the hall, the Pine Valley Research and Conservation Sanctuary project has been approved. The explosion of applause and celebrations that followed was interrupted by an unexpected sound. Noah's crystalline laughter, who had just finished his drawing at that exact moment. It was as if the universe had conspired to create a perfect moment of synchronicity. Tom Walker felt a mixture of relief and responsibility. The real work was just beginning. In the days that followed the historic vote, a new energy took over the city. Even the most fervent skeptics began to get involved with the preparations for establishing the sanctuary. Frank Wilson, surprising everyone, was one of the first to offer practical support. "I have 50 acres of land adjacent to the proposed area," he announced during a planning meeting. "If this can help create a safer buffer zone between the sanctuary and the city, I'm willing to negotiate." Dr. Emily Richards coordinated the formation of the sanctuary's first scientific team. Researchers from different specialties began to arrive in Pine Valley, bringing with them state-of-the-art equipment and innovative methodologies for studying animal behavior. "What we have here is a unique opportunity," Emily explained during the team's first meeting. "We are not just studying communication between species, we are potentially rediscovering a lost language that all living beings can share." Sarah and John Martinez decided to remain in Pine Valley, abandoning their original plans to move. Sarah accepted a position in the sanctuary's education department, where she would develop programs for children based on Noah's extraordinary experience. Little Noah, now fully recovered, became a constant presence at the sanctuary during its construction. His ability to communicate with animals seemed to extend beyond the bear that had saved him. Researchers watched in awe as he naturally interacted with different species that inhabited the region. "It's as if he has a gift," commented Dr. Margaret Chen, who continued to study the boy's behavior. "But perhaps it's not a unique gift to him. Perhaps it's something we all possess that has been dormant through time and civilization." The construction of the sanctuary progressed rapidly, thanks to community support and international organizations that became interested in the project. The facilities were planned to have the least possible impact on the natural environment, using sustainable technologies and ecological materials. One of the most exciting moments was when, during a quiet afternoon, the bear that had saved Noah was spotted near the sanctuary under construction. She watched from afar as if inspecting the progress of the works. Tom Walker, who witnessed the scene, felt it was a sign of approval. "She's still around," Tom commented to Emily. "It's as if she understands that we're creating something important here." The news of the sanctuary spread quickly through the scientific world. Universities and research centers from various countries began to show interest in establishing partnerships. Pine Valley, which was once just a small town in the mountains of Wyoming, was transforming into a world center for studies on interspecies communication. The impact on the local community was beyond the most optimistic expectations. New jobs were created, scientific tourism began to flourish, and a sense of pride took over the residents. The city that once feared proximity to wildlife was learning a new form of coexistence. As months passed, the Pine Valley Sanctuary began to reveal surprising discoveries. The research team, led by Dr. Emily Richards, documented animal behavior patterns never before observed. The presence of the sanctuary seemed to create a unique environment where natural barriers between species began to dissolve. Noah, now 3 years old, continued to be a constant source of admiration and study. His connection with animals strengthened each day, and scientists began to notice something extraordinary. Other animals, beyond the bear that had saved him, responded in a unique way to his presence. "It's fascinating to observe how he communicates," Dr. Chen commented during an observation session. "It's not just body language or vocalizations. It's something deeper, more primitive, and at the same time more sophisticated than we imagined." A particularly memorable morning brought a surprise that no one expected. The bear that had saved Noah was seen again near the sanctuary, but this time she wasn't alone. She carried with her 2 newborn cubs, a rare spectacle that filled the entire research team with emotion. "She chose to have her cubs near the sanctuary," observed Tom Walker, his voice betraying the emotion of the moment. "It's as if she feels this is a safe place, a refuge." The news of the cubs brought a new dimension to the project. Researchers now had the unique opportunity to study not only the maternal behavior of a grizzly bear, but also how this extraordinary experience could influence the development of the cubs. Sarah Martinez, working on the sanctuary's educational program, began to develop an innovative curriculum based on observations of her son. "Children have a natural ability to connect with animals," she explained during a presentation for visiting educators. "Noah has shown us that this connection can be much deeper than we imagined." The program began to attract families from all over the country, interested in exposing their children to this new way of understanding and interacting with nature. Children who participated in the sanctuary's activities demonstrated notable changes in their way of relating to the natural world. Emily Richards and her team began to document what they called the Noah effect, an apparent increased capacity for empathy and communication with animals that children developed after spending time at the sanctuary. "It's as if Noah's example is awakening something dormant in other children," Emily theorized. Frank Wilson, who had initially been the project's biggest critic, became one of its most passionate advocates. His farm, now part of the sanctuary's protection zone, began implementing regenerative agriculture practices that allowed for harmonious coexistence with wildlife. "I never thought I'd say this," Frank admitted during a community meeting, "but this sanctuary hasn't just changed our town, it's changing our way of seeing the world." The constant presence of the bear and her cubs near the sanctuary began to attract the attention of animal behavior experts from around the world. Their behavior challenged everything known about grizzly bears, especially regarding their interaction with humans. One day, while Noah was playing under supervision in a safe area of the sanctuary, something extraordinary happened. The bear brought her cubs closer, as if wanting to introduce them to the boy she had cared for months before. The scene, captured on video by researchers, would soon become one of the most iconic images of the project. Dr. Chen, observing the interaction, made a note in her field diary that summed up everyone's feeling. "Perhaps it's not us teaching Noah something. Perhaps it's him, through his pure and innocent connection with nature, who is teaching us something we have long forgotten." Summer arrived in Pine Valley, bringing with it an unexpected challenge. An unprecedented drought began to affect the entire region, transforming the verdant landscape into shades of brown and yellow. The intense heat and lack of rain began to worry not only the local population, but especially the sanctuary team. "Water levels are critically low," Jennifer Wu warned during an emergency meeting. As the biologist responsible for environmental monitoring, she presented alarming data about the situation. Animals are starting to move in search of resources, and this could create conflicts with inhabited areas. Tom Walker worriedly observed the maps and graphs presented. The drought was not only affecting the sanctuary, but the entire balance they had managed to establish in recent months. Local farmers, including Frank Wilson, were beginning to report significant losses in their crops. "If the situation continues like this," Frank explained during a community assembly, "we'll have no choice but to use our water reserves to save what's left of the crops. This means less water available for the sanctuary." Tension began to grow in the city. Some residents, pressured by scarcity, began to question the priority given to the sanctuary and water distribution. The delicate balance between the community and the project seemed threatened. It was at this critical moment that Noah, now more developed in his communication ability, began to demonstrate intriguing behavior. The boy started to closely observe the movements of the animals, especially the bear that had saved him and her cubs. "He's trying to tell us something," Sarah observed, noticing how her son persistently pointed to a specific direction in the forest. Dr. Chen, who continued to study the boy's behavior, began to document his gestures and expressions with even more attention. One morning, Noah managed to make himself understood more clearly. Using a mixture of simple words and gestures, he indicated that he wanted to follow the bear. "Water," he repeated, pointing in the direction the animals usually took. Tom Walker, Emily Richards, and a small team decided to investigate Noah's indication, carefully following the animal trails. The discovery they made was extraordinary. An underground water source hidden in a rock formation continued to flow even during the drought. "It's amazing," Emily exclaimed, examining the area. "The animals knew about this resource all along. They have a much more sophisticated mental map of the territory than we imagined." The discovery of the water source was just the beginning. Subsequent analyses revealed that it was a substantial aquifer, capable of providing enough water to sustain both the sanctuary and the community's needs during the drought period. "The animals showed us the way once again," Tom reflected during a meeting with the city council. "And it was through Noah's special connection with them that we were able to understand the message." The news of the discovery spread quickly, transforming a moment of crisis into an even greater learning opportunity. Scientists began to study how animals, especially bears, mapped and shared information about vital natural resources. Sarah Martinez organized a series of educational talks to explain to the city's children how the discovery had happened. "See how important it is to listen to nature," she explained to the young visitors at the sanctuary. "Animals have a lot to teach us if we're willing to learn." The drought crisis, which initially threatened to divide the community, ended up strengthening the bonds between the sanctuary and the city even more. The wisdom of the animals, interpreted through Noah's unique sensitivity, had provided a solution that benefited everyone. The discovery of the aquifer brought more than just water to Pine Valley. It attracted the attention of a special group of visitors, representatives of Native American tribes from the region. Among them was Joseph Flying Eagle, a respected elder of the Shoshone tribe, who arrived at the sanctuary with a specific purpose. "Our ancestors always knew about this source," Joseph explained during a meeting with the sanctuary team. "It's part of our ancient stories about communication between humans and animals. You didn't discover something new, you rediscovered an ancient wisdom." The presence of the indigenous representatives brought a new dimension to the sanctuary's work. Joseph began to share traditional stories about communication between humans and animals, revealing that what was happening with Noah was not unprecedented. "In our tradition," he explained, "there were special people who could talk to animals. It wasn't considered something supernatural, but a natural ability that everyone possessed to different degrees. Over time, most people lost this connection. Emily Richards and her team were fascinated by the correlations between modern scientific observations and traditional indigenous knowledge. It's as if we're rediscovering through science a truth that native peoples never forgot," she reflected. Noah demonstrated an immediate affinity with Joseph. The elder recognized in the boy signs that his tribal stories described a natural openness to communication with animals, free from the blocks that modern society usually imposes. "The boy didn't learn to talk to animals," Joseph explained during an observation session. "He simply never unlearned." The experience with the bear kept open a channel that most of us close very early in life. Sarah Martinez, inspired by the traditional stories, began to incorporate elements of indigenous knowledge into the sanctuary's educational program. Under Joseph's guidance, she developed activities that helped children reconnect with their natural abilities to communicate with nature. "We're not teaching children anything new," Sarah explained to parents. "We're just helping them remember something that's already part of them." The presence of the indigenous representatives also brought a new perspective on the behavior of the bear that saved Noah. Joseph explained that in his people's traditions, bears were considered teachers, guardians of the wisdom of the earth. "What happened to your son was not an accident," he told Sarah. "In our view, the bear chose him to be a bridge between two worlds. She saw in him the purity necessary to carry an important message." Tom Walker, always pragmatic, found himself deeply touched by the traditional wisdom that Joseph shared. The indigenous stories offered context and depth to the scientific observations they were making at the sanctuary. Dr. Chen began to document the correlations between traditional knowledge and modern scientific discoveries. "It's fascinating to see how different paths of knowledge can lead to the same truths," she noted in her research diary. One afternoon, while Noah was playing near the newly discovered water source, the bear and her cubs appeared. Joseph, who was observing the scene, noticed something significant in the animal's behavior. "See how she moves," he whispered to Tom and Emily. "She's not just showing the way to water. She's teaching her cubs, and at the same time she's teaching us." This is the true purpose of the sanctuary, to be a place where we can relearn the ancient language of nature. The success of the Pine Valley Sanctuary had spread far beyond the borders of Wyoming. With the discovery of the aquifer and the integration of traditional indigenous knowledge, the project had gained an even greater dimension. However, this visibility also brought unexpected challenges. A tranquil morning was interrupted by the arrival of a delegation of executives from Northwest Resources, a large tourism development company. Richard Sterling, the company's CEO, arrived in a private helicopter, causing agitation among the sanctuary's animals. "We've come to present a proposal that will revolutionize Pine Valley," Sterling announced during an emergency meeting of the City Council. His plans included the construction of a luxury tourist complex that, according to him, would transform the region into a world-class destination. "Imagine," he continued, projecting elaborate digital images, "a five-star resort overlooking the mountains, golf courses, designer shops. We can make Pine Valley the next Aspen." The proposal caused immediate division in the community. Some residents, attracted by the promise of economic development and jobs, showed interest. Others, including Tom Walker and the sanctuary team, saw the proposal as a threat to everything they had achieved. "The tourist complex would occupy part of the protection area," Jennifer Wu explained, analyzing the project maps. "This would directly affect animal migration routes and could compromise access to the aquifer." Joseph Flying Eagle, who was still in town sharing his traditional knowledge, expressed his concern in a forceful manner. "This land is not just a piece of property to be developed. It's a sacred place of connection between species, one of the few that still remain." The tension increased when Sterling began making individual visits to city council members, offering personal benefits in exchange for support for the project. Frank Wilson, surprising many, was one of the first to denounce these manipulation attempts. "I've learned a lot in the last few months," Frank declared during a community assembly. "The real value of this land can't be measured in dollars. What we have here is something much more precious." Noah, now with greater expressive capacity, began to show signs of restlessness. Dr. Chen noticed that the animal's behavior had also changed since the executive's arrival. The bear and her cubs, who used to be seen regularly, kept more distance. "The animals sense the threat," Joseph explained. "They understand more than we imagine. The land speaks through them, and they are warning us." Sarah Martinez organized a special presentation of the sanctuary's educational program, showing the positive impact the project had on children's lives. "We're not just preserving nature," she argued. "We're preserving our children's ability to connect with something greater than themselves." Emily Richards and her team worked tirelessly to document the unique scientific value of the sanctuary. "What we have here cannot be replicated elsewhere," she explained. "This is a unique confluence of natural, historical, and cultural factors." While the community debated the future of the sanctuary, something extraordinary happened. One morning, Noah led his mother and Dr. Chen to a remote area of the sanctuary. There, to everyone's amazement, they discovered ancient cave paintings preserved in a cave near the aquifer. "These paintings," Joseph explained, examining the images, "tell the ancient story of communication between humans and animals. They are proof that this place has always been special, a meeting point between worlds." The discovery of the cave paintings added a new layer of meaning to the importance of the sanctuary. It wasn't just a modern scientific project or a conservation initiative. It was the continuation of a much older story, a legacy that needed to be protected. The discovery of the cave paintings mobilized the international scientific community. Archaeologists and anthropologists began arriving in Pine Valley, confirming the historical and cultural importance of the site. The timing couldn't have been more perfect, considering the threat that the resort project represented. These paintings are not just ancient art, explained Dr. Maria Vasquez, a renowned archaeologist who arrived from Mexico to study the site. They are a detailed record of how our ancestors communicated with animals. It's a manual of wisdom preserved in time. Northwest Resources, however, didn't give up easily. Sterling intensified his campaign, now promising to preserve the cave paintings as an exclusive tourist attraction within the resort. The proposal was met with indignation by the academic community and indigenous peoples. "You can't turn sacred history into entertainment," Joseph declared, his voice heavy with emotion during a council meeting. "These paintings are part of a living story that is still unfolding here in the sanctuary." It was at this moment that Noah unexpectedly provided yet another surprising revelation. During a visit to the cave with the paintings, the boy began to reproduce gestures that remarkably resembled those portrayed in the ancient images. "It's extraordinary," observed Dr. Chen, documenting every movement. "He's naturally replicating communication patterns that were recorded thousands of years ago. It's as if his body remembers a language that his conscious mind never learned." The bear and her cubs, who had kept their distance during the period of greater movement, began to gradually return. One morning, they were seen near the Cave of Paintings, in a scene that seemed taken from the ancestral images themselves. Tom Walker, inspired by all these events, organized a strategy of peaceful resistance. Instead of direct confrontations, the community decided to show the world the true value of the sanctuary through live broadcasts of Noah's interactions with the animals, archaeological discoveries, and the results of scientific research. "We don't need to shout louder than them," Tom explained during a community meeting. "We just need to show the truth of this place in a way that everyone can understand." Sarah Martinez expanded the educational program to include virtual visits, allowing children from all over the world to experience the magic of the sanctuary. The online sessions, which showed the natural interactions between local children and animals, went viral on social media. Emily Richards and her team published a series of preliminary scientific papers on the discoveries at the sanctuary, highlighting the unique importance of the site for understanding communication between species. The international scientific community responded with massive support. Northwest Resources began to face pressure from its own shareholders, many of whom were touched by the historical and scientific importance of the site. The company's stock value began to fall as public opposition to the resort project grew. Frank Wilson, using his influence among local farmers, organized a support group for the sanctuary. "This land has taught us more in the last few months than we've learned in generations," he declared. "We can't allow this to be destroyed for short-term profit." A particularly powerful moment occurred when Noah, during one of the live broadcasts, demonstrated his unique form of communication with the animals. Millions of viewers around the world watched in wonder as the boy and the bear interacted in a way that precisely echoed the scenes depicted in the cave paintings. The impact of the sanctuary's live broadcasts exceeded all expectations. Within weeks, Pine Valley had become a global symbol of harmony between humans and nature. The images of Noah interacting with the animals, especially with the bear and her cubs, touched hearts on every continent. "It's amazing how a small town in Wyoming has become the epicenter of a silent revolution," commented Dr. Emily Richards during an interview for a major documentary channel. "What we are witnessing here is not just the preservation of a natural space, but the reawakening of an ancient form of connection with the world." Pressure on Northwest Resources grew daily. International environmental groups began to speak out against the resort project, and important investors began to question the wisdom of antagonizing a project that had captured the global public's imagination. Richard Sterling, however, had one last card to play. On a surprising morning, he arrived at the sanctuary with a different proposal. "I want to understand," he said, showing a notable change in his stance. I want to see for myself what makes this place so special." The Sanctuary team, although initially skeptical, decided to accept Sterling's request. Tom Walker personally conducted the executive on a complete tour of the facilities. During the tour, something unexpected happened. Noah, who usually kept his distance from strangers, spontaneously approached Sterling. "Come see," said the boy, taking the businessman's hand and leading him to the area where the bear and her cubs usually appeared. Dr. Chen, observing the scene, noticed how Noah's behavior seemed to break something in Sterling's professional facade. By coincidence or fate, at that exact moment, the bear emerged from the forest with her cubs. Instead of backing away as would be expected, she calmly approached. Sterling, a man accustomed to controlling all situations, found himself completely unprepared for the emotion of the moment. "It's different when you see it in person, isn't it?" commented Joseph Eaglewing, who was observing the scene from afar. "They're not numbers on a spreadsheet or lines in a contract. It's real life, real connection." The impact of the experience on Sterling was visible. During the following hours, he participated in various sanctuary activities, including a session of Sarah Martinez's educational program and a visit to the Cave of Rock Paintings. His transformation throughout the day was remarkable. "Perhaps," he said during an impromptu meeting at the end of the day, "there are better forms of economic development that don't compromise something so precious." The news of Sterling's change of position spread quickly. In the weeks that followed, Northwest Resources officially announced its withdrawal from the resort project. More than that, the company surprised everyone by declaring that it would create a foundation to support conservation and research initiatives at the sanctuary. "Sometimes you need to take a step back to be able to move forward in the right direction," Sterling declared at a press conference. "What I learned in Pine Valley fundamentally changed my view on development and preservation." The sanctuary's victory represented more than just the preservation of a natural space. It demonstrated the power of the union between scientific knowledge, traditional wisdom, and the purity of the natural connection represented by Noah. It was living proof that different worldviews could not only coexist but strengthen each other. Dr. Chen, in her notes from that historic day, wrote, "Today we witnessed something extraordinary, not just the preservation of a physical sanctuary, but the transformation of hearts and minds. It's a reminder that true change happens not through confrontation but through connection." With the threat of the resort definitively removed, the Pine Valley Sanctuary entered a new phase of development. The foundation created by Northwest Resources provided significant resources to expand research and educational programs, always maintaining the delicate balance between development and preservation. "It's fascinating to see how things have transformed," reflected Tom Walker, observing the sustainable construction of new research laboratories fully integrated into the natural landscape. What started with an unlikely rescue has become a global model of conservation. Sarah Martinez's educational program had expanded significantly. Schools from all over the world now participated in exchange programs, sending students to learn about communication with animals and the importance of environmental preservation. Children who participated in the program showed notable changes in their way of seeing and interacting with the natural world. "Every child who passes through the sanctuary takes with them a seed of transformation," Sarah explained during an international conference on environmental education. "They learn that nature is not something separate from us, but a fundamental part of who we are." Noah, now almost 4 years old, continued to surprise everyone with his unique ability to communicate with animals. Dr. Chen had developed a specific methodology to study and document his interactions, creating a new field of research that she called intuitive interspecies communication. "The most interesting thing," she explained, "is that the more we observe Noah, the more we realize that his ability is not something supernatural or unique. It's a latent capacity in all of us, especially in children, that can be awakened with the right environment and guidance." Joseph Eaglewing continued to be a regular presence at the sanctuary, now leading a special program that integrated traditional indigenous knowledge with scientific research. His ancestral wisdom provided valuable insights that complemented modern discoveries. "The ancients always knew," he would say during his lectures, "that true communication goes beyond words. It's a dance between hearts, a tuning into the rhythm of the earth itself." The bear and her cubs had become living symbols of the sanctuary. The cubs, now larger, demonstrated extraordinary behavior, seeming as comfortable with human presence as their mother. This second generation of connected bears provided a unique opportunity to study the transmission of complex social behaviors. Frank Wilson, transformed from critic to passionate advocate, had implemented a pilot regenerative agriculture program on his farm, inspired by the principles of coexistence learned at the sanctuary. His example was influencing other farmers in the region to adopt more sustainable practices. "It's not just about protecting nature," he explained to visitors to his farm. "It's about finding ways to thrive alongside it." Dr. Emily Richards and her team continued to make surprising discoveries. Their studies on animal behavior in the sanctuary revealed increasingly complex patterns of communication and social organization, challenging many established theories about animal behavior. "What we're learning here," she explained during a presentation to fellow scientists, "is revolutionizing our understanding not just of animal intelligence, but of the very nature of consciousness and communication." One particularly significant afternoon, while watching Noah play with the bear cubs under the watchful eye of the mother bear, Tom Walker realized that the sanctuary had become much more than just a research center or conservation area. It was a living laboratory, where a new form of relationship between humans and nature was being forged. The success of the Pine Valley Sanctuary began to resonate internationally in a way that no one had foreseen. Conservation and research centers from various countries began to request guidance to replicate aspects of the program in their own facilities. The small town in Wyoming had transformed into a beacon of hope for global conservation. "It's surprising how a small event can trigger a worldwide transformation," reflected Emily Richards during a video conference with researchers from 5 continents. She now coordinated an international network of studies on interspecies communication, with the Pine Valley Sanctuary as a reference center. One day, exciting news arrived at the sanctuary. A group of conservationists in India had managed to establish similar communication with elephants, using the principles developed in Pine Valley. In Africa, another group reported success with gorillas, and in the Amazon, researchers were obtaining promising results with jaguars. "What we discovered here is spreading like ripples in a lake," observed Tom Walker, moved by the reports coming in from around the world. "Each new success confirms that we are on the right path." Noah, now with greater expressive capacity, began to actively participate in the sanctuary's educational programs. His natural connection with animals continued to be an extraordinary phenomenon, but now he could explain in his childish words how he perceived and felt this communication. "They speak with their hearts," he explained to the other children visiting the sanctuary. "You need to listen with your heart, too." Sarah Martinez had developed a special curriculum based on her son's observations, which was now being adapted for different cultures and contexts around the world. "Every child has the potential to connect in this way," she explained. "Our task is simply to remove the barriers that modern society has created." The bear and her cubs continued to be constant presences in the sanctuary. The cubs, now almost adults, demonstrated extraordinary behavior that defied everything known about grizzly bears. They had developed a unique form of interaction with humans, maintaining their wild nature, but demonstrating a remarkable understanding of peaceful coexistence. Joseph Eagle Wing, observing the development of events, shared an ancient prophecy of his people. "Our elders always said that a time would come when humans would need to relearn the language of animals to survive. Perhaps that time has come." Dr. Chen, who continued to meticulously document every aspect of Noah's development and his influence on the sanctuary, made an intriguing discovery. Children who spent time in the sanctuary not only developed greater empathy with animals, but also showed significant improvements in their social and emotional skills. "It's as if the connection with animals opens channels of perception and communication that benefit all aspects of child development," she explained during an international symposium on child development. Frank Wilson, who had become an informal ambassador for the sanctuary, now traveled to different regions of the country, sharing his transformation experience with other farmers and landowners. "It's not just about preservation," he explained. "It's about finding a new way of life that benefits everyone." A particularly touching moment occurred when a delegation of Buddhist monks visited the sanctuary. They spent hours observing Noah interact with the animals, and one of the older monks commented with tears in his eyes, "This child is showing us the way back home." The international media continued to be fascinated by the Pine Valley story. Documentarians from around the world took turns capturing different aspects of the work carried out in the sanctuary. One of them, particularly insightful, observed, "What we have here is not just a conservation project, it's a glimpse into the future of humanity." The impact of the Pine Valley Sanctuary had transcended all initial expectations. What began as an extraordinary story of rescue and connection between a boy and a bear had transformed into a global movement of reconnection with nature. In different parts of the world, projects inspired by the Pine Valley experience were beginning to flourish. In India, an elephant reserve had adapted Sarah Martinez's educational program to their local context. Children from nearby villages were developing extraordinary relationships with the elephants, helping to significantly reduce conflicts between humans and animals in the region. "It's amazing to see how Indian children respond so similarly to ours," Sarah commented during a visit to the reserve. "It's as if we all speak the same language when it comes to connecting with animals." In Africa, a pilot project with gorillas was producing surprising results. A young orphaned gorilla had established a special connection with a local girl, reminding everyone of Noah's original story. Dr. Chen traveled personally to document the case, finding remarkably similar communication patterns. "Each new case we study confirms our theory," she explained in her report. "This capacity for interspecies communication is not unique to Noah. It's a fundamental human ability that can be reactivated under the right conditions." In Pine Valley, the sanctuary continued to evolve. A new wing dedicated to international research had been inaugurated, allowing scientists from around the world to collaborate in real time, sharing discoveries and methodologies. The most advanced technology blended harmoniously with traditional wisdom, creating a unique approach to conservation. Joseph Eagle Wing, now internationally recognized as one of the leading experts in traditional knowledge about communication with animals, led workshops that attracted participants from dozens of countries. "The world is remembering," he would say. "We are reawakening to a truth that has always been within us." The bear that had saved Noah continued to be a constant presence in the sanctuary. Her cubs, now fully grown, had established their own territories nearby, but maintained the same extraordinary behavior as their mother. They had become the first of a new generation of bears that demonstrated a unique capacity for peaceful coexistence with humans. Tom Walker, observing the legacy that was developing before his eyes, often found himself reflecting on how it all began. "Sometimes the greatest miracles happen in the most unlikely moments," he would comment. Who could have imagined that a stormy night would change the world in this way? The Pine Valley community had been completely transformed. The small town that once feared proximity to wildlife was now a global model of harmonious coexistence. Local businesses flourished with scientific and educational tourism, but in a sustainable way that preserved the essence of the place. Frank Wilson, on his model farm, constantly received visitors interested in learning about agricultural practices that respected and included wildlife. "We discovered that when we work with nature instead of against it, we all thrive," he explained to visitors. One particularly significant afternoon, as Noah played with a group of visiting children near the Cave of Rock Paintings, something extraordinary happened. The children, without any prior instruction, began to naturally reproduce the same ancestral gestures recorded on the cave walls. "It's as if the knowledge was in the very air of this place," observed Emily Richards, who witnessed the scene. "The children are naturally tuning into a communication frequency that has existed for millennia." 20 years had passed since that stormy night that forever changed the destiny of Pine Valley. The sanctuary had transformed into one of the most important research and conservation centers in the world, a place where modern science and ancient wisdom met in perfect harmony. Noah, now a young man of 22, had become a respected researcher in interspecies communication. His unique connection with animals, especially with bears, remained as strong as in childhood, but now he also possessed the scientific knowledge to understand and explain these extraordinary bonds. "It's fascinating to see how everything has evolved," he commented, observing a group of children participating in a session of the educational program his mother had created 2 decades earlier. "Each new generation that passes through the sanctuary seems to have an even greater ease in reconnecting with this universal language. The bear that had saved him, now an elderly matriarch respected by the scientific community, still regularly visited the sanctuary. Her cubs had become parents of their own families, creating a unique lineage of bears that demonstrated extraordinary behavior of peaceful coexistence with humans. It's as if she had initiated a new evolutionary lineage, explained Dr. Chen, who continued her research at the sanctuary. Her descendants maintain all the natural instincts of wild bears, but also possess an exceptional ability to understand and interact with humans. Tom Walker, now with grey hair but still full of energy, coordinated a global network of similar sanctuaries that had been established following the Pine Valley model. When we started, we were just a small project in Wyoming, he reflected. Now there are more than 50 sanctuaries on every continent, each adapted to its own local culture and ecosystem. Sarah Martinez had transformed her educational program into an international curriculum adopted by schools in dozens of countries. The key has always been to maintain simplicity, she explained. Children naturally know how to connect with animals. Our job is simply to create the right environment for that connection to flourish. Joseph Eagle Wing, although quite elderly now, continued to be an inspiring presence at the sanctuary. His stories and teachings had been documented in a series of books that were now a worldwide reference in traditional knowledge about communication with animals. The circle is completing itself, he said during a special ceremony celebrating the sanctuary's 20 years. Ancient knowledge and new knowledge are meeting, showing that we have always been part of one great family. Frank Wilson, who had become one of the country's most respected experts in regenerative agriculture, looked proudly at his model farm, now managed by his daughter. What was once a traditional property had been transformed into a vibrant ecosystem where agriculture and wildlife coexisted in harmony. Dr. Emily Richards, reviewing 2 decades of research, had compiled compelling evidence that the capacity for interspecies communication was a latent characteristic in all human beings. What happened with Noah wasn't an isolated miracle, she explained. It was an awakening that showed us the way back to our true nature. A particularly significant moment occurred when Noah found cave paintings similar to those in Pine Valley during an expedition in Patagonia. This confirms what we've always suspected, he explained in a global video conference. This form of communication between humans and animals existed in different cultures around the world. We're not discovering something new, we're rediscovering a universal wisdom. The impact of the sanctuary had transcended all initial expectations. What began as an extraordinary event on a stormy night had transformed into a global movement of reconnection with nature. Pine Valley was no longer just a place, it was a symbol of hope, a reminder that another way of living on the planet was possible. On a quiet autumn morning, Noah prepared for his first major international expedition. After 2 decades of learning and growth at the Pine Valley Sanctuary, he had been invited to lead a pioneering project that would apply the principles developed there in different ecosystems around the world. "It's strange to think I'm leaving," he said, watching the sunrise over the mountains he knew so well. At his feet, sitting patiently, was one of the granddaughters of the bear that had saved him so many years ago. The special bond with these animals remained as strong as ever. Sarah and John Martinez watched their son with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. "You're taking Pine Valley to the world," Sarah said, hugging Noah. "But more importantly, you're carrying the message that it's possible to create a new form of relationship with nature." Noah's expedition would take him first to the Amazon, where indigenous tribes had shown interest in sharing their traditional knowledge about communication with animals. From there, he would move on to Africa, Asia, and other places where new sanctuaries were being established. Tom Walker, who had become a mentor to Noah over the years, handed him a special journal. "This is the diary where I recorded your first interactions with the animals," he explained. "Now it's your turn to record the stories you'll find around the world." Dr. Chen had prepared a special research protocol for the expedition. "Each place you visit will have its own challenges and discoveries," she explained, "but the essence of interspecies communication remains the same anywhere on the planet." Joseph Eagle Wing performed a special blessing ceremony for Noah's journey. "You're not just taking knowledge," the elder said. "You're carrying a message of hope, a reminder that all living beings are part of one family." On the morning of departure, something extraordinary happened. The old bear, now a rare but still majestic presence, appeared at the edge of the sanctuary. It was as if she had come to say goodbye to the boy she had saved so many years ago, completing a cycle that had begun on a stormy night. "It's not goodbye," Noah whispered, gently approaching the animal. "It's a promise that what we've learned here will continue to grow and spread." The legacy of Pine Valley had become much greater than anyone could have imagined. The little boy who had been saved by a bear was now preparing to help save other ecosystems, carrying with him a message of hope and transformation. As the helicopter that would take Noah away took off, he looked one last time at the valley that had been his home. Down below, he could see the sanctuary facilities, Frank Wilson's model farm, the school where his mother had developed the revolutionary educational program, and the mountains where it all began. The Pine Valley Sanctuary would continue its work, now under the leadership of a new generation of researchers and conservationists. The discoveries would continue, the connections would deepen, and the message of harmony between humans and nature would continue to spread. And so, as Noah departed for his new journey, the cycle initiated on that stormy night continued to expand, touching more lives, inspiring more changes, and reminding the world that true greatness lies in the ability to recognize the deep connection that unites all living beings.